Pacers win Game 7. They come into the Garden. They get it done over the New York Knicks with a historic, in so many ways, offensive night. They made everything. Everyone contributed. They survived the Garden. They survived the Knicks' best punch, and they are headed to the Eastern Conference Finals to face the Boston Celtics. Rhett Bauer's back, and we're talking about it all today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Sure you did if you're a fan of the Pacers, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Eastern Conference Finals bound Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we're talking about Game 7 here in the Garden, still here. They tore apart the court, but they're not tearing it down. I can still see the Knicks logo, but it's all fractured and broken up, both because they're done playing and because the Pacers tore them to smithereens. An unbelievable offensive night for the Pacers, who could not miss. Everyone was making everything. They were generating good shots. Their energy was infectious. They survived the Garden crowd. They looked incredible. They played their way. They played their style. They get their first road win of the series, and they are headed to the Eastern Conference Finals to take on the Boston Celtics. So much to talk about today. The whole game, the moments that made it a Game 7 and made the Pacers get it done. Looking a little bit ahead at the Celtics today as well. It was such an impressive performance from the Pacers. Still here in the Garden to wrap it all up. And all of you, gloat in the YouTube comments, tweet at me, tell me how dumb I am. I was wrong. I picked the Knicks. The Pacers were better. They got it done, and they're off to the conference finals. Let's talk about it all with Rhett Bauer. Rhett's here. The closer's here, which means the series is over, and we're both smiling, which means it was a fun, exciting game to talk about. Pacers smoke the Knicks. Was never close. Historic offensive night. Historic to win a Game 7 on the road in the Garden. The Pacers are headed to the Eastern Conference Finals. I just start there at what did you make of this and accomplishing this feat beyond the individual things that happened in the game?
I was not very optimistic that it would happen, to be quite honest with you. Like the way that they got punched in the mouth for Game 5 in MSG and how loud that building was, like it was not pretty. And the Pacers just came out guns a-blazing, and obviously when you're hitting quite literally every single shot, that is a pretty big it's a pretty big benefit that helps things. But it came from everybody though too. Like it wasn't just one player going crazy. So I think the Pacers really stepped up as a collective, and hat tip to Siakam for starting off the way that he did. His shot making was insane. Yeah,
he picked on a matchup that was pretty favorable, which we'll talk about in a second. You kind of nailed it though. Like to me, like I'm here, I'm still in the building, and there was a point in the second quarter the Pacers were still up huge, like 16 or 18, but Alec Burks is going on like this mini heater for the Knicks, and these fans are just going nuts. They're chanting at Alec Burks every time he scores, every time he hits an and one to cut it to 20-18. It's like they just won the game. Like that crowd means something. It has like an actual point value. I don't know how many it is, but it is something, and that's why it's so hard to win in MSG. And they were getting killed at that time. Like when it got to 6 in the third quarter, I was like, oh man, like this is going to be so tough to overcome. And TJ McConnell completely changed the game at that specific moment in time. But that is why I, like you, thought, man, this is going to be so tough for this team who hasn't won in this building all series for a reason. One is that the Knicks are good, and two is that it's extremely difficult. I mean, ask the Sixers. They only won once in here, and it took whatever the heck you call that Tyrese Maxey final sequence. So it's very tough, and yet the Pacers did it, and you nailed the how. Historic is what Rick Carlisle said about winning a Game 7 in MSG, period, regardless of the style. Historic is the word I'm going to use to talk about the how, because no team has ever before today shot over 67% from the field in the playoff game until right this second. Today it has been done. The Pacers 67.1%, 53 makes on 79 attempts. That is completely freaking bananas. Everyone who played except for Obi Toppin shot at least 53.3%. Insane. They were making threes. They made twos. They kind of made free throws. They didn't turn it over too much. It was insane. Every possession they got a good look. And the thing that made it even more wild about it is they were missing layups, but they were making all these insanely tough shots or like mid-rangers you don't expect to drop at the rate they did. They made like all of them. It was an I don't even have a good word for it. Like it just felt like there was nothing they could do wrong because they could go 18 seconds in a possession and then, an 18-footer from a guy you don't expect to make them. Yep, it's going in every single time.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. You're saying that you don't know how much the Knicks crowd is worth in the series. Well, I can tell you because for this series, it's been about 13 and a half, 14 points every single game on average. That the 30-point loss obviously is a big one, but like to be able to come into there and do it the way that they did, like the thing for me that was so crazy was even though Siakam's matchup was favorable and OG only played those 5 minutes or so, it was Nesmith hitting shots off the bounce at the end of shot clocks. It was Nembhard making really tough finishes through contact, through Hartenstein, through Hart. Like it was everybody. And, I mean, shout out Ajax playing only 10 minutes, but he made some really, really big plays.
Everybody.
Unbelievable.
We will talk about everybody because they all deserve something for the way that they played. So he wasn't the best player at all. But the face of the way they shot today is Aaron Nesmith to me. You nailed it. Like there was the third quarter, the Knicks cut it to 6 and it was down at 7 a couple times. And like everyone in media row was like, oh boy, here we go. And then like 3 or 4 times just in that quarter, Nesmith catches, gets run off the line, 2 dribbles, pull up midi, bucket every single time. And it's just like the Knicks are probably like, okay, cool. And Aaron Nesmith mid-range, you're late in the shot clock. Like, awesome. We did a good job defending. Doesn't matter. He scores. And then he had one to get him up to 15 or 16 where he leaked ahead in transition and got an and one layup that kind of rolled in. Like he's had a rocky series from 3. Did not matter at all today. And so the fact that he was making these shots that to me, I'd consider like a defense is willing to live with it shots. That is kind of the summation of this game to me. Like we'll talk about the stars. They were hitting shots and they needed to in this game and they were great. But like the face of the Pacers setting the record among many role players playing phenomenal games was specifically the third quarter, but really throughout the game, Aaron Nesmith just wiggling around anybody being like, yep, F you, we score, we win. Like take that. It happened over and over again. It was unbelievable. I've said unbelievable an unbelievable amount of times already.
And it's still like, that's still accurate. Like you can keep using the word, but it still is correct. I mean, the thing for me that I noticed with Nesmith was the offensive foul that he got called for on Brunson on that baseline, which was kind of, whatever. Brunson been doing that all series of using that off arm, but like, normally when he attacks a closeout, he's not super under control. Like it's very often it's like, all right, this is a 50-50. Either he's going to get
he can't get all the way to the rim. You're like,
right. Okay. And so like that happened. And then he hit like 3 or 4 off the dribble buckets and was just making crazy plays. So like, credit to the Pacers as a whole, like the mindset of it, especially in that second half when it felt like the Knicks were swinging and really coming back, and that crowd, like you said, was hyped up for Alec Burks in a way that like they were reaching, but it was also he was bringing them back in it. And so to survive that with this young of a team for a team that's not really supposed to be here, even with the Knicks injuries, I don't really want to hear about that. Like I understand your rotation is absolutely decimated. Your entire starting lineup by the end of the game was out between Mitchell Robinson and Randall and OG and Brunson, and then Hart by the end of it with fouling out and being injured. Like it's still, you had to go into that building against that crowd, against that.
Rhett, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you remember who was injured for either the Hawks or the Washington Wizards in the first and second round of the 2014 playoffs when they played the Pacers?
Ooh, no.
Exactly. Like
exactly right.
10 years from now, people will remember the Pacers made the conference finals. That's it. Period. Full stop. Like, yes, it matters in the moment. And like when in the very immediate future, when they're making decisions about the future of their team, sure, like it should cross your mind and be a thought. But like no one will ever remember that. Everyone will remember that team, this team, not that team. They're 2 feet from me. This team made the conference finals. They beat the Knicks and the Bucks and they made the conference finals. And now they get a chance to even do more. Like that's what people remember, right? Like you have to really think and dig hard to go. Like in the first round, all these Bucks people were saying, "Oh, the Pacers are only winning because they're." And then it took 4 games of that series for someone to come into my mentions and go, "Well, the Nets guys were hurt in the second round." Like, yeah, it took you 4 games to figure that out because you don't remember because that's not what people remember, right? It's just not how it goes. So, yeah, it's a reality, but who cares? So Nesmith, the face of it to me. Sorry, I had that. That's my tangent answer to people who keep talking about that. Like, yes, it's a thing. Who cares? So the stars were the tone setters in terms of the shot making to me. You talked about Siakam. The Pacers won by 21, so no one will remember. If the Pacers won by 6, the Knicks would have gotten hellfire from people asking why OG played in this game because he played the first 5 minutes and he actually made 2 crazy shots where he didn't even jump off the ground.
Yeah.
But they lost those minutes by 6 and he could not move. like at all. His leg was barely coming off the ground. He'd run down the floor, and so Siakam was like, "Okay, what?" And he
5
just
of
beat
6 in
him.
the first quarter. Siakam
Yes,
was.
and then he had one possession. OG's guarding him. Pascal takes it up. He was the point guard. Like, I've never seen him do this in a half court setting, not transition. He passes it to Ty, runs behind a screen. He's wide open under the basket. Like, no one could stay with him. That was a disaster for the Knicks. And if OG didn't make two crazy shots, they'd have been down 11 in like 2 seconds because of that. And that set the tone for Pascal's night, because then it went right back to what we saw in games 3 through 6, which is he's either the second half changed this. So they finally put Hartenstein on him, which they should have done the whole series. He's either being guarded by Josh Hart, who he's way taller than, or Precious Achiuwa, who he's just way better than. So he could cook all night. He set the tone with that start and with that first quarter. And Haliburton was obviously great too. We'll get to him in just a second. He was probably their best player. But the OG starting this game really helped the Pacers. This is the same as Dame playing game 6 in the first round. It sounded so good for the other team to have their good player. And in the end, something about the way they played defensively really helped the Pacers. And that was massive, I think, in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, like, I love seeing OG come out there, like, not as a Pacers fan, like, biased. It's great to see him out. Like, no, it sucked to see him
Everyone
compromise.
who fights through injuries gets all the applause from me, and it takes excuses off the table, which, of course, the Pacers will be happy with. And they absolutely crushed the matchup. They deserve a ton of credit for this.
And again, like you said, they won by 21, and they were a -6 in OG's 5 minutes. So it's not like that cost them the game, and it was only a couple minutes. And like Josh Hart being banged up too, like he came out there and played, and he interviewed after the game saying, "Hey, it's game 7 in our house in the Garden. Like I'm gonna go out there and ball," and they did. Like so credit to that, but also like I wonder a little bit if Siakam was like, man, like you can just tell he's not right. So he's just like beating up on the dude.
It's too
they
easy.
won a championship.
It might as well been me. Like
I mean, but no, you're absolutely right. Like going 6 of 9 in the first half like that, and starting off so well, and it was still like some really tough buckets from them, and it just opened everything up. And obviously Ty going 4 of 5 in the first half on threes too is just nuts, because I feel like if he got off to a little bit of a slow start, the crowd would have let him know about it. And that is one thing that they could completely took the crowd out of it after the first couple minutes, and they didn't really get full force back into it until that second half, when the game came out and was just a completely different game from the way that the first half ended.
Hey guys, short little break here. Let's talk about 2 wonderful groups of people. Starting off with Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investment and retirement accounts in one place? Well, you can. With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. And that's what I like about it so much. For 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor, because they're the best place to read and see all the news. Yahoo Finance is there for seasoned investors who need extra guidance, or people like me who really need everything all in one place, right? They've got a holistic look at the financial news cycle. The breaking news is right there. They have editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, all the stuff that you can really dive into. They know it better than you, and they can help you find out all that information, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401ks and other investments, for a comprehensive perspective. And that's what sets them apart from other places. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand, find every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That is yahoofinance.com. Let's also quickly talk about Prize Picks, the #1 fantasy sports app in America. More than 3 million members, where you just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch the winnings roll in. It's the playoffs. It's the conference finals. Get in on the action. Win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as the best players hit the ground running in the postseason. You get up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as few as 4 correct picks. You can now turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's simple to play. You can make your picks in a minute or less and turn your money into more. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types. For example, Caitlin Clark, more than or less than 30 points, or Nikola Jokic, more than or less than 10 rebounds. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks. Again, that app is Prize Picks with the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Yeah, Ty was wiggly from 3, and that was when, like, pre-in-season tournament, Ty was, the guy that everybody was like, should this guy be MVP? Like, he was at that level because he could get 3 from 3 whenever he wanted and make a bunch of them. And tonight, 12 of his 17 shots were threes, and he made 6 of them. Like, that is an unguardable player. Like, he wasn't quite the passer he was at that point. It's crazy that the Pacers made 53 shots and their leader was McConnell with 7 assists. Like, that one underscores like the tough shots they were making and two, how much of a team effort this really was. But Haliburton was in score mode tonight, and their leader only had 26 points because everybody was making shots. But just like Siakam, right? They both played 33 minutes. They both just kind of wiggled to their spots and made them. And Siakam's heel, he didn't really need to be motivated, but just like he had an easy matchup, but he just crushed it to his credit early in the game. Haliburton's heel was this fan, and I caught it after his first made shot. I forget exactly what it was. I think it was a left wing 3. He does like some little thing with his hands like this at some guy like 7 seats out from the ESPN desk who's wearing a flannel and a hat. And they showed him on the broadcast. You've all seen him now. But I remember like tracking their every chatter during the game, and they kept going at it. And everyone remember, it was like the second game of the regular season. A fan was going at Haliburton, and Haliburton pointed at him and said, "You did this, right?" He loves playing on the road for that exact reason. Someone can motivate him to an umpteenth higher level. And he had a front row fan getting on him, and he loved making that dude pay. And he would point at him and jaw with him the whole time. And he was going crazy in the first quarter. He had a person to do that for him in this game. And Pacers will take it because he made that person shut up and hit shot after shot right in front of him and was awesome in the first half of this game.
Yeah, the Pacers had 5 players with 4 or more assists, and then Ben Shepherd had 3. And Obi Toppin was one of those that had 4. Like, that's the level of contribution that we were getting from everybody, where Obi Toppin is moving the ball around and getting assists. And like, even Ijax had 1, Aaron had 1, Myles had 1. Like, it was just an overall absolute insanity in every way, shape, or form.
Use the word. Say the word. Say the line.
Unbelievable, some might even say. But no, I think that, it's a really fine line between that road crowd motivating you and that road crowd putting you on your heels, which is what we saw earlier in the season. Or in the series, but not so much in Milwaukee. There were still some times where that crowd was the motivating factor, not really the reason, more or less, that the team was as rough as they were. And so shout out to the Pacers as a whole. Tyrese coming out and talking like that, like it's a good deal. And I mean, it's just crazy to see a team collectively come together like that with only really Siakam having any playoff experience.
Agreed. Okay, we'll get to every player at some point, and then we'll talk about the Celtics. A moment I want to talk about that I alluded to about 2 seconds ago, a very good player who didn't fill up the stat sheet in a way that will make him the leader for anybody, but so TJ McConnell was the highest plus minus on the Pacers in this game. He finished plus 21. And the exact moment I would like to refer to is in the middle of the third quarter. I already brought up about the timing earlier. The Knicks are just slowly cutting into it, cut, and it gets down to 6-point lead. I'm going to find the exact moment on the clock where this happened. Yes, 8:06 to go. Josh Hart running layup, 8:06. It's 73-67. Not long after that, less than 2 minutes later, TJ McConnell comes in a 7-point game after a DiVincenzo 3. The Pacers were up 14 like a minute after that. In fact, exactly 44 seconds after that, they're up 14. Right? Like, he came in and just instantly was, here's this great backup point guard doing his thing again. He had an assist in there, and he stole an inbounds pass at some point, although it was a little later. But just his energy in this game was ridiculous. And he got into the lane, he did the Nash stuff, he set up his teammates, his defense was awesome. Like, the second he came in, the game flipped, and so he finished with 12 and 7, which is good for a backup point guard anyway. But that does not properly describe the impact he had in this game. In the third quarter, the closest quarter of the game, he was plus 10. No one else on the Pacers better than plus 5. He only had 4 points and 2 assists. Those don't sound like good stats, but his impact was crazy, and that was the game-changing moment that really sealed the game for the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean that, and then McConnell got the inbound steal. So Nesmith had a shot clock pull up.
That's when Nesmith hit the insane layup. Was after that steal. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So Nesmith, shot clock running down, 11-foot pull up, nails it. McConnell steal, pass it to Nesmith. Nesmith gets absolutely draped by a Hartenstein, hits the bucket, and then hits the free throw. And then Myles came down and smothered McBride after Myles absolutely baited him into getting that. And that was, Pacers were up 15 at that point, and it was 15, so like game was kind of already over. But that was just one of those situations where it was like, that is the exact kind of momentum or like series cementing kind of plays that just came from came from everybody. But McConnell, I mean, he coming in the way he did in the defense he played on Brunson, fighting through screens and all that stuff was really, really exceptional for a team that
Exceptional,
really
yes.
couldn't guard anybody, and for how good of screens that the Knicks typically set. So just, again, we talked about it last series, a guy who started the season not in the rotation for good reason, now coming in and quite possibly winning them a playoff game and playoff series.
The other thing that mattered a little bit about that stretch, at least for like, I don't even know what the right word is to describe Pacer fan emotions. They went from up 6 to up 18. And at the end of that, when they were up 18, Brunson left the game. He fractured his foot, or his hand, excuse me. I don't know why I said his foot. He fractured his hand in the game. And so if it was a 6-point game then and then the Knicks lost, everyone would have said, oh, well, if Brunson played, they would have won. No. Pacers were crushing them when he left the game. They probably would have held on anyway, although he is so good that maybe, that they would have said the opposite. So it just dominant 5 minutes after McConnell comes in that really changes the game. All right, let's just gush about the guys we haven't talked about yet. Andrew Nembhard in this game, I believe he was, I'm trying to pull it up very quickly, 8 for 10, and I think all 8 of his shots were like right after the Knicks scored 4 or 5 points in a row, and we're like, oh, maybe. Nope, just kidding. Andrew Nembhard just scored a layup again. And he guarded Brunson more in this game than he had in previous games. Also had 6 assists. He was very good, and I don't know if you have anything to add there, but I think that he also, like McConnell, will have an underrated game looking back.
So this guy, Andrew Nembhard, played almost 34 minutes in the game, was awesome, was genuinely awesome. He answered so many shots. He was a -2. He was a -2.
That's not fair to him. That is not fair to him.
That is so, like, the Pacers won by 21, and somehow the Knicks were plus 23 in.
Funnily enough, that kind of is fitting because, like I said, his shots stopped these runs, which means he was in for the runs and ending them. Like, they would have been -10 if he didn't make the shots to end them. So that's actually kind of a fittingly funny plus-minus in a way.
Well, and I like that it stands out because, the only other player who was even close to that was Ajax at +4. And so it's like, well, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, it does make sense. Nembhard was in there punching back. Like, he was taking the haymakers and punching back. And the way that it stood out to me the most, I bet if you look at his shot chart, driving layup, Nembhard, left hand, right side. Like, it's just, he was attacking the rim and getting there and
pull
finishing.
It up right now, or can we not pull it up right now?
I wasn't gonna.
1, 2, 3, 4 right in the. Oh no, 5 right in the circle in the restricted area. 2 from the left elbow and 1 left wing 3.
Yeah. So he had
right there.
He had 8 made shots, and 5 of those 8 were in
right in the basket.
Like, that is game-changing stuff on the road in a hostile environment. Like I said, it's one thing to hit a big-time 3 when you're going against a run and you got to answer, but getting right to the cup and putting it in a tough finish is something that this team hasn't really had for a lot of these losses. And just shout out Nembhard being a -2 despite being one of the most impactful players on the floor.
The ESPN broadcast that they're showing right next to me just showed the shot of Haliburton's 18-foot right wing fadeaway where he pointed at that fan and said, hey, you're doing this. You're letting this happen. Very enjoyable. They're also now showing the Knicks comeback. That was for naught. Okay, Myles Turner. Another guy who is, again, not going to be the leader of anyone's coverage of this game. Is it valuable, Rhett? I'm just curious. When a big man can make threes, punish small guys at the rim, and protect the paint in probably his best defensive game of the series, would you say that is an important player to have on a team?
Oh, I don't know. It's tough to say for sure because sometimes he doesn't rebound super great. He only had 5 rebounds, and I hear that is one of the. I mean, no.
Don't care.
No, not at all. Like, if you watch the game, not to say you didn't watch the game, because obviously I think anybody listening to this probably watched the game, but like the way that he was impacting the floor on both ends was just, it was awesome. It was awesome to see, especially, he was talking after the game saying like, I'm getting a little bit teared up. I'm getting emotional. Just like, it's crazy to be back there because it is like, consider how long he's been with the franchise, everything that he's been through. We talked about it at the end of last series too, but like, man, he was so good. And the rim protection, a couple of the blocks that he had were just like absolutely deflating, just disrespectful, and just not something that a lot of players in this league could do, especially coming down to the other end, making five extra buckets, 5 of 8 inside 3-point line. Like, it's just, he was so good.
It's funny that the whole series, and I think this was right to do, but still, like, I talked about the Pacers' height advantage and how that's mattered for them in creating some of their advantages. Well, today I've noticed Myles Turner's height advantage when he was getting these blocks. Like Deuce McBride reached around for a reverse layup, and Turner didn't even jump. He just was like, "Oh, bye."
This is mine now.
Yeah, that's not going in. Like, he just was taller, and he actually did well offensively with that too. Second half, they go Hartenstein on Siakam, which if I'm the Knicks, I'm wondering a lot why that didn't happen earlier in the series. But Turner 3 for 4 in the second half. He had one ugly turnover on a post up. Other than that, did very well punishing those smalls. Ben Shepherd is a rookie who does not play like a rookie. Played 25 minutes, had 4, 5, 3, and 2 plus 10. Isaiah Jackson didn't miss a shot in this game. His fouls were a problem, but 9 points, a rebound, and assist. What a series from him. I mean, this was, he was great all series. All his little flip shots in the lane went in. I did not know what they would do at backup center this series because they had to play one after they didn't in the first round. And they went with Isaiah Jackson. That was obviously the right call. So those two guys in their first postseason in a game 7 on the road were great. That's what the Pacers did. I mean, everybody, we probably won't talk too much about Obi because he probably isn't happy with how he played, but literally everyone else who played did awesome in their role and made it literally everything that came their way.
The thing for me that stood out with first, actually, shout out Ben Shepherd. I wasn't a huge fan of the pick at the time. I thought it was like, okay, another smaller guard.
Dude, he could give nothing
so
ever again, literally ever again, and it's a good pick.
I'm not going to use an example of a rookie who had a really good first season and then did nothing again for the Pacers because we've had that. But Ben Shepherd, he did, in fact, he came in and you could see him improve in this series specifically because he got the Brunson assignment and did not look good. And immediately he got pantsed actually on the first possession of guarding him. And he came in and you could see him getting coached by the players on the floor. You could see him getting coached on the coaches on the sideline. And he just kept playing well and earning the minutes that he got because he did continue to improve, but then also he deserved to be out there. And then Ajax, he was noticeable every time he was on the floor, to me at least. He came out, and I think maybe it's the rebounding conversation, but anytime he came out on the floor, and it's funny, he only had 1 board, but I felt like he had at least 1 possession in the first minute or 2 where he was on the floor, where he would just jump and get his belly button at the rim and get a board in a way that no other Pacer could. And that's just his ability to be huge and to be an unbelievable athlete is just something that was just phenomenal. And I don't care that he had 4 fouls in 10 minutes. It was, that is what it is. That is who he is.
Great, but whatever.
I don't think that we don't need much else from him in a game like this, thankfully. But what a game to have, and what a series to have, and what a playoff run to have heading into extension talks this summer.
Someone who's good with tech, make one of those staples that was easy buttons for me that just says unbelievable every time I hit the button. And then I don't have to say anymore. I'll just hit the fake red button in front of me. Yeah, look, he had the fouls in this game, but specifically Isaiah Jackson this playoffs. I was thinking about this, but there was never a good time to really talk about him. This season for me with his growth was all about how he just made less mistakes, right? He did the stuff he was good at, but he didn't mess up as much with a dumb foul or a moving screen or jumping at someone's shot. And that kind of stuff lets you be trusted in the playoffs when you're not messing up as much. And he still does sometimes, but that ended up proving to be very valuable in a series like this when he's dialed in and he's not messing up. He's your backup 5. That's huge. They didn't have to go small anymore. They could play him behind Turner. He could bang with whoever the Knicks had in there. It was awesome. And he did a great job in this game. And the Pacers are moving on to the conference finals. I think a second round series, making it to that is a successful season for almost any team ever. Making the conference finals is like in the best 5 seasons in franchise history for a lot of franchises. For the Pacers, it's not quite there because they've been there quite a bit, but it's close. One more break here, guys, so we can talk about FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and in the NHL. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own in the postseason right now. If you're a new customer over on FanDuel, you hop in, you will get $150 in bonus bets. That's a lot. With any winning $5 bet, one $5 bet, you win it $150 in bonus bets that you can bet on anything you want. Player props, or if you like money lines, they got those, and spreads, and so much more. They have their customizable betting tab. FanDuel's got it all. You got to check it out yourself. So visit FanDuel.com/lockdown to make every playoff shot count and get that offer of $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. FanDuel.com/lockdown on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. They play Boston. Let's talk about the Celtics a little bit here. We didn't get a ton of talk from the Pacers on the Celtics today. Obviously, they were little excited. That wasn't really the theme of
Rightfully
any of the
so.
pressers. Yeah. So the thing is, here's where I'll start. I think the only two teams that beat Boston more than once in the regular season were Denver and Indiana. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's the case. Like, we've seen it. The Pacers I think you're looking it up right now. The Pacers can beat the Celtics a lot, and they've proven that, and I can never write this team off. They're this far for a reason. That said, this is the best defense they've played so far in the playoffs, and that's going to be a fascinating, I guess the Knicks were too, but that's going to be a fascinating battle of how can they tear this team up. And Porzingis is not playing, and that's going to help them. Well, we'll see how long he's out for, if he's out at all. It sounds like he's not playing early in the series. How much that changes things will be an interesting dynamic, but they have so many good defenders. They get up a ton of threes. They're a little high variance in that way. They've lost 2 home games as a result, but they are a tough defense. I think that's going to make for a fascinating series. Can the Pacers offense that just got them to this series outscore this incredible Celtics defense?
Celtics have lost to the Hawks, the Bucks, the Nuggets, and the Pacers multiple times this season.
Okay,
but
14.
the two losses for the Celtics to the Hawks both came on back-to-back games in late March. So just shout out my guy DeJounte Murray.
The Bucks one too was that late season when Giannis got hurt was the second one. That's why I don't remember those. Okay, well,
exactly.
One of 4 teams, so they've proven they can beat them. My point stands. Continue.
Exactly. No, and I think too, it's worth noting Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know if he'll be healthy to start the series, so that's something to definitely watch out for. But yeah. I think the only way that the Pacers win this is the same way they won today, is as a collective, because 1 through 4, one and 2 probably go Boston's way, and Derek White has been insane. And so
you are bold to pick the Celtics to win a game 2 at home. That is the boldest thing you've ever said to me.
I didn't say it would be a sweep, but I do think
they can't do it to anybody, man.
Right? Nope. No, exactly. I mean, no, it's going to be really, really fascinating, because I think as gritty as the Knicks were, and as good as the Bucks should have been, maybe expected to be, obviously with the injuries to both of them, the talent difference there was just noticeable. And I think on the Pacers side, in this series specifically, the Pacers had a more talented roster. They just got outworked more often than not. And in this case, that will absolutely not be true. The Pacers will not have the more talented roster, but they will be much, much deeper. And that's where I think the collective, if they have a chance at all, is going to have to be guys 4 through 8 or 9, or however many guys they end up running out there.
Yeah, it's the thing that stands out to me the most is, like, before this Knicks series, the question was, who's OG guarding? They have a premier defender. Which star is he guarding? In this coming series, it's like, they could throw a number of premier defenders at either one of them, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's just they're so talented, and all those guys are two-way players, right? Like, the conundrum the Pacers had a lot of this season before some trades was like, do we lean into offense with this group or defense? And if we're balanced, is it too much in one way or the other? Like, the Lakers that's been a lot of their talk since they've been eliminated. It's like they had a lot of defensive guys and offensive guys, but very few who could do both. Basically, everyone who plays for the Celtics can do both, right? So, like, it's real. They don't have a ton of, like, weaknesses. Their weaknesses is they beat themselves a lot, right? And so it's kind of up to the Pacers to force them to do that, and they did it twice already. In the regular season, they'll tell you the same thing, that the regular season doesn't matter, and I agree with them. But they just from a perspective of confidence, they won the season series against the Knicks and Bucks, and look at that, they're in the conference finals. So I think that's going to stand out in the postseason. So far, the Celtics have the 3rd best defensive rating. Ironically, the top 2 teams are out. It's the Magic and the Thunder, which is very funny. I didn't realize that, but it is what it is. And the Celtics have the 2nd best offensive rating, behind only Rhett who?
Probably the Pacers.
The Pacers by like 3 points per 100 possessions. So they are killing it on both ends, as they do. There's a reason they're 8-2, which they've lost. It's so funny. They lost once to the Cavs and once to the Heat, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're not playing good." I'm like, "Yeah, they are." Like those games were bad that they lost, but they're crushing people. This is the toughest test yet, and by like a pretty good amount for the Pacers. But I mean, it'd be stupid to ride a team that we saw that can score 130 points and have this kind of team effort off at any point. They've adapted well to every opponent they've played so far. They adjust well throughout series, even within games. Haliburton rounding into form. Siakam's had 6 I don't know, pick your number level of like, oh my God, games in the playoffs. Like they can do it, but that's where this is going to come down to me matchup wise, right? Like clearly there were places in this series specifically like Nesmith on Brunson and then who's guarding Siakam throughout the series. Like the matchups, the little things. I'll try to find the Steve Jones tweet that I always, kind of like to look at in the postseason that really kind of shined for the Pacers. Steve Jones, who used to be an assistant coach in the NBA and hosts the Dunker Spot, the best X's and O's basketball podcast by a lot. By a lot. Tweeted,
by an unbelievable amount, I might even say.
Yes, by an unbelievable amount. He tweeted last year, I bookmarked it forever ago. Playoffs are interesting because at some point in the series, it stops being about how good your team is and it becomes, can you solve this very specific thing right now? And the Pacers in this series had to solve they're defending us and crushing us on the glass. How can we get around those things? And in this next series, I think a lot of those problems are going to be so hard to solve because all the answers run into a different wall because of how good the Celtics are. But again, you can't write a team off anymore. When you make it this far, everyone picked the Celtics over the Heat last year, including me, and then the Heat won. I don't know who I'm going to pick yet, but it's so when you get this far, a lot of that stuff fades off, and you just think, well, they can do it. They've proven it. They're a high variance team. It's possible. The Celtics just happen to be the toughest test yet they've played.
And I think ultimately that's the thing is you can discredit the Pacers' path to get here if you want, and if the Celtics end up winning, you can discredit the Celtics' path to get to the finals. They still did it. They still did it. They played enough to get to where they were in the seeding. They played the people who were in front of them, and they beat them. And they still had to adjust to the very specific things that were happening to them. And I mean, regardless of what the outcome is, I think that is still very valuable for a Pacers team who didn't even want postseason expectations before the season started, let alone, an Eastern Conference Finals appearance.
Right.
And so, I mean, no matter what, I think that there's going to be some extremely, extremely valuable takeaways from this series, from the playoffs as a whole, from the last couple of series, but then from this one too, is how you look going up against what is probably the Pacers' kryptonite in two very big forwards that play both ends of the ball. And then you've got Derek White and Drew Holiday as well. And maybe Kristaps Porzingis.
Until Porzingis comes back, these will be my two biggest questions entering the series. One, if it's Horford playing a bunch again, he played a bunch and was awesome, by the way. He was so good at the end of the Cavs series. If it's Horford on Myles Turner, can the Pacers use that speed advantage to their advantage? That was two advantages in a row. Can they use that to their benefit in any way? Because Turner's been so good in this postseason at picking on good matchups. He was amazing against Brook Lopez in games 3 and 4 at home, for example. That's got to be a way the Pacers can get an edge offensively because 1 through 4, the Celtics can match up with anybody, as we already talked about. And so it's going to be really hard to just obviously have an advantage anywhere else. So that's early in the series. Porzingis presumably will come back at some point. Thing two that I'm the most curious about, and I'm curious what your answer is. Who does Tyrese Haliburton guard on the Celtics?
Drew Holiday.
I was going to say it's probably going to be Drew Holiday, and he's very good. He actually wasn't that impressive to me against Cleveland. He's a great player, but if that's the best option. That's how good this team is. So it's going to be.
I might actually say Derek White. Sorry to interrupt you, because Drew might post up a lot more than. Derek White.
The thing about White is they weave him through a million screens to get these threes, and then he's taking a beating. I don't know. I think you have good merit to both, but those two questions are going to be fascinating to me. And I guess to go further on the Haliburton one, whoever he's on, can he do enough that just doesn't sink them immediately? Because that's going to be so challenging.
Yeah, I mean, just consider the type of players that we just talked about as the worst option on the floor for Haliburton to guard. This is not like Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, or Jalen Brunson. This is Derek White he had an argument for an all-star spot this year to a certain degree, and Drew Holiday before has been
2 years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so you're looking at okay, cool. I guess Haliburton's going to guard borderline all-star players who are going to wear him out on the other end. It's not going to be any cross matching to take advantage of there either. You nailed it with the first point for me is if Myles isn't better than Horford, then it's not going to matter.
Yep.
But then beyond that, it's what can guys like Nesmith and Siakam do on the defensive end?
The Nesmith series, dude. This is sick for him.
Yes. I mean, I hope that Boston welcomes him back, because that would be super, super cool for him to walk into that building and get praised for becoming the player he is, despite it definitely not happening in Boston, nor would it have happened in Boston in the same way.
His trade via the stones of trades got them Drew Holiday, so they can look at that, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, no, it's neat. There's a lot of different there's a lot of different pieces here. I want to see a Myles Turner playoff Boston dunk again.
That's
Because
right.
we've got some good ones there. O'Shea Brissett revenge series too.
Oh yeah, there
We're
you go. There you go.
But no, I'm just excited for more Pacers basketball and think that
Me too.
the Pacers can just try to hang in there the best they can and try to learn, just to enjoy it.
I was dreading before the postseason, like, man, it's gonna be really hard to do a lot of podcasts about the draft because their picks are so bad in a bad draft. Now I don't have to do any podcasts about the draft because the Pacers keep playing games. There's a lot of games to talk about. I can't wait for the series. It's gonna be awesome. I'll be up in Boston. We'll see when I get there. I decided to go back to watch Caitlin Clark Monday night. We'll see if that was a smart decision for me or not. I'm predicting no, it was not. And I actually am going to decide that this is the Daniel Tice series. Unfortunately,
There you go.
he is not actually a part of it, but he was the salary that made all this possible. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. I need to dig into the history of Pacers Celtics series. Rhett, thank you for the time. Everyone, you've heard Rhett here a million times. He's the closer. He'll be back next when Pacers Celtics ends in whatever way it ends. Where can people find you and your musings on the NBA, Pacers, etc., etc.?
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Rhett_Bauer. Hopefully you don't have to hear me like within the next week or so, because I'm pretty sure Game 4 does
When is the
does
earliest
take
it can end? Monday night? Next Monday night?
Monday night. Yep,
Yeah.
next Monday night. So it might be 24 hours from the time that you're here, or 7 days from the time you're hearing this. But definitely will not be 24 hours unless. Yeah, never mind. Find me on Twitter.
I'd be. I said this about any opponent the Pacers could have. Like even when
Yeah.
they were like questionable if they'd make the playoffs, I'd be shocked if anyone in the league swept them. Like even Boston before the playoffs started, I was like, no one's gonna sweep the Pacers. Their offensive variance is just too high to be swept by anybody.
And the way they play at home too, like that's just that's tough.
How that will be crazy in this series. They have not lost at
Yes.
home for 2 months, and they've just snuck out one road win each series to get it done. It's unbelievable that we're here.
Yep,
talking
there it
about
is.
the
Last
team like
one.
this. Yes, I had to sneak in one more. I'm done saying the word for now. Someone's gonna get mad at me. Someone tweeted at me the other day, remembering how annoyed they were at the podcast where I said rubric like 1,000 times, and I even commented on it in the episode. It was last summer, I think. So yes, people do notice that. I am so sorry, everyone. Back tomorrow with John Corrales. We already communicated doing a crossover preview of the series. He hosts Locked On Celtics, and for my money, he's one of the best solo team hosts out there. He's unbelievably good at it. Looking forward to seeing him throughout the series. See you guys in Boston for the Eastern Conference Finals that the Pacers are a part of. Enjoy the win, everybody. See you very soon.